Hey divas, welcome to Pink Table Topics. How are you doing? Please put a one in the chat and let me know you can hear me, please. How are y'all doing today? Please put a one in the chat for me. Okay, I see a one. I see a one. How y'all doing? Happy Tuesday. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to Pink Table Topics. I am your host and your good sis, Pink Diva. Thank you so much for joining me today. As you're pulling your seat up to the table, don't forget to hit that like button for me. Feel free to drop down, leave a comment, engage in the topic, and turn the bell notification on so that you'll be notified each and every time I drop a new topic. And as you know, our mission is to create a safe space for women to gather as a community, engage in healthy dialogue regarding real life issues that we as women deal with on a daily basis, but most importantly, to foster the true meaning of sisterhood. And if you are here, that means you are subscribed and representing the Diva tribe, and not just any diva. We are divine, we are inspiring, we are valiant, and we are admirable. Welcome to the table, divas. How is everybody doing? Let me go over our motivational quote of the day. Every day may not be a good day, but there's something good in every day. Every day may not be a good day, but there's something good in every day. And as you know, I have to be courteous when you come to my house. So let me go around the table and do my divas roll call. Let me speak to my divas in the chat. How is everybody doing? Angela Richardson is here. Hey, sis. Thank you so much for pulling up to the table. My mod, Teresa Wright. Hey, sis. Thank you for being here, sis. I appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you. Hey, Girlfriend Chronicles. Thanks for pulling up, Diva. I appreciate you. My sis, Chit Chat with QT, is in the house. Hey, sis. Thank you for pulling up and modding for me. I appreciate you. Hey, Mama V. Thanks for being here. I appreciate you. Real Talk with Grace and Mercy. Hey, sis. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you. I appreciate you. Hey, Linda. Linda Gamble is in the house. Thank you so much for pulling up. I appreciate you for being here. How's everybody doing? Thank you. Thank you. Hey, Betty. Thank you, Diva, for pulling up to the table. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate you. I am back, y'all. I am back. I am back. Let me tell you, I had an amazing time in Miami. The weather was a perfect 82 degrees, sunny skies, beautiful blue waters, and sandy beach. I loved every minute of it. You hear me? Only to have to come back to 3 below 0 degree weather and snow. I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready. I was not ready. But thank God for traveling grace, considering everything that's going on with these planes, everything that is going on with these aircrafts. But, I don't believe in praying and worrying. I believe in praying and not worrying. So here I am. Here I am. We are here. We are here. Thank you, thank you, thank you for joining me. I appreciate each and every one of you for being here. And, anyways, before we get too far, don't forget to go register for Mel's TikTok Live that will be this coming Saturday at 2 o'clock p.m. if you haven't done so already. So make sure you go over and register for her live. Get your wallets ready and going on over there so we can support our girl. Anybody know what you are planning to purchase? Girlfriend Chronicle said, glad to hear that. Thanks, Diva. Thank you so much. I had an amazing time. Teresa said it was snowing here. Oh my goodness. Every day that I was talking to my husband, he was talking about how much snow they were getting hit with while we were gone. And I'm like, thank God I missed it. Thank goodness that I missed it. I did not have to deal with it. But you best and believe it was waiting on me when I got back. Sis said it's 12 p.m. Central Standard Time, 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, and 3 p.m. Eastern. Did you mean 12 p.m.? Okay, yeah, I see it. 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, and 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So make sure you all go register. Linda said that it is snowing, it's raining here in Texas. I actually a had to switch planes in Texas. It was raining when I was there that day too, Linda. Angela Richards said that I'm glad you enjoyed yourself and made it back home safely. Thank you, Diva. I sure do appreciate it. I'm glad I did too, but I'm not going to lie. Like I really was super nervous. I was almost ready to cancel going on my trip because of everything that had been going on with these aircrafts. And then I just saw where the Delta plane flipped over. Was it yesterday or today in Toronto? So I don't know what's going on. I really don't. It's scary though. It's really scary. Girlfriend Chronicles said we will be getting snow tomorrow here in Charlotte. Charlotte was another area, Girlfriend Chronicles, that on my return trip I had a overlay in over there in Charlotte. So yes, 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 yes. Rain, snow. I am so over it. You hear me when I say I am over this winter weather? When I was in Miami, I just felt so at home because I love sunshine. I'm a summertime girl. I love sunshine. I love water. I love clear blue skies and I love being on the beach. Like that to me is peace. I love it. Teresa said we just flew in on Delta Friday night and my husband was nervous. I was nervous too. I was so nervous. I really was because it was so much going on and I don't know if it's a situation to where things like this has always been going on, but we just weren't seeing a lot of it due to social media. But it's just every time you turn on the news, it seemed like something is going on with these planes. So I was super nervous. I was super nervous because a couple of times leaving out of Charlotte, we ran into like some really bad turbulence and we seem to have had like a couple of delays. So when we left here we were supposed to fly into DC, but upon getting there we were told that our flight was being rerouted to go to Dallas. Something was going on in DC, so we couldn't fly to DC, so we had to fly to Dallas and from Dallas to Miami. And you know, when you get there you're kind of like, because it's so unexpected and you're kind of like, okay, we were supposed to be at our destination by now, so we basically ended up traveling all day on Wednesday, whereas we were supposed to schedule to make it to Miami at 1 p.m., but we didn't make it until like 5:30 because we had to be rerouted. And you know, and I just had to say, Lord, I don't know why you delayed this plane, or I don't know why you rerouted us, but I'm going to be thankful anyway because it was a reason that it was rerouted. So we just gonna be okay with it because as long as we make it and made it safely, that was most important. So I wasn't one that was tripping over it being rerouted. I just know everything happens for a reason, took it for what it was, and we had a good time. Girlfriend Chronicle said, Chit Chat, I have 2 trips planned for May, and I'm glad I have insurance on them. I just might have to cancel. I know that that's right. We almost canceled. I was definitely super nervous. Betty said, Pink Diva, that sounds like retirement vibes. Girl, listen. Definitely, I would definitely be retiring somewhere in the Caribbean. You hear me? Somewhere in the Caribbean. Look at sis. She said, yeah, I'm walking to my Caribbean destination, child. Yes, yes, yes. I cannot wait. Teresa said it was snowing here in DC. Is that today, sis? You got some snow? It is super cold outside. I have not been, I got back Sunday evening late around 7 p.m. I have not been outside since I returned. It is so cold outside. It was colder yesterday than it was today. So I have been super fine sitting inside in my pajamas all day. It's a whole mess, a whole mess, a whole mess. But thank you all for joining. I appreciate each and every one of you for being here. We're going to go ahead and get started with our topic for today. I'm not going to hold you long, girl. It's like work as soon as I came back. and signed into my email. Oh my goodness. It just seemed like people just don't know how to do nothing when you're gone. Like you have everything set in place, but you come back to I had so many emails. It took me all day to go through all of my emails and request, and this person wanting this and that person wanting that. It was a full day of just chaos. And and this is what happens when we go on vacation for a couple of days. We come back to a bunch of stuff, right? So I was just over it. Teresa said it was snowing Sunday, and that's probably why your flight was rerouted. That's probably why. I wasn't mad at all. I was kind of frustrated in the beginning because I was ready to get to my destination, but again, I had to remind myself that everything happened for a reason, and I was not going to trip on the plane being rerouted. It wasn't like we had to get to Miami to get on a cruise or anything. Miami was our final destination, so it wasn't that big of a deal. It's just that basically when you are traveling these days, you may as well just prepare your mind to just know that there are going to be some travel delays, and you should just expect it going forward. So it is what it is. It worked out. It was fun. I had an amazing time. We did a girls trip. It was 8 of us, and I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. And my favorite time out of the entire 5 days was just the day that we actually were able to just sit out on the beach in our swimsuit for the whole day. That to me was the most peaceful and my most favorite part of the entire trip. Just being able to sit out on the beach and look at the water and just be. So I really enjoyed it. So take your trip, girls. Go somewhere, even if it's not too far, even if it's somewhere that you can drive to for a weekend. Take you some time and just go somewhere and just have some fun. Let your hair down a little bit. It's definitely worth it. We work hard every day. Um, we just do so much for so many other people all the time. So just go somewhere and do something nice for yourself. Do something nice for you. Sis said a getaway is needed. Glad you enjoyed, sis. Thank you. Yes, you are so right. A getaway is definitely needed. Sometimes we need to just detach from our everyday lives, change our environment, and just go somewhere and do something for yourself. So definitely try to map out some time that you can do that for yourself. You'll thank yourself later for sure. So let's get into our topic of the night. I'm not going to be watching the chat right this second. I'm just going to go over my notes a little bit so I can make sure I'm not missing anything. But as you can see on the thumbnail, we're talking about who should pay for the funeral. Who should pay for the funeral? And I wanted to join in on this conversation because it's been going around social media about, Stormy paying for the funeral. I've seen conflicting remarks about who everyone thinks should have paid for the funeral. I've heard people talk about Stormy not being the one to actually mention anything about her paying for the funeral at the reunion, and that it was actually Carlos who brought it up. And although that is true, we know somebody had to tell Carlos about it, right? I don't think it was a surprise to anyone. For whatever reason, Carlos chose to announce it on the reunion. It is what it is. I've seen comments where people stated that her family, meaning Tisha, Wanda, Marceau, they should have offered to pay for the funeral. But at the time, the family was at odds. They weren't really speaking to each other at the time. So, my question to you all is, who do you think should have paid for the funeral and why? Who do you think should have paid for the funeral and why? I want to see what you all say because I'm going to redirect this a little bit, but I'm interested in hearing who you all think should have paid for the funeral expenses and why. Sis said they said Stormy mentioned it first in one of her lives. Okay. Hey, Deborah. Thanks for joining us. I appreciate you for being here. Hey, Miss Wynn. Hey, sis. Thanks for pulling up to the table. So, sis said she thinks Stormy, that they said Stormy mentioned it first in one of her lives. Girlfriend Chronicle said, if Stormy paid, I would have reimbursed her for it. Regardless, I would not let a friend pay for anything my family to speak on it later. Okay. Teresa said first of all, her husband should have paid. If not, then the family, then maybe the show. Okay, interesting. Sis said it was admirable that Stormy paid, but with the family claiming to be millionaires, I think they should have paid. I agree. I agree. MLC Capricorn is in the house. Hey, Diva. Thank you so much for putting up. I appreciate you for being here. I agree. I totally agree with your comments. And I wanted to say, being that you're stating who you think should have paid for the funeral and why. Now that you've stated who you think should have paid for the funeral expenses and why, let's remove these people from the equation for a minute. Let's remove Tisha, Wanda, Marceau. Let's remove Stormy. Let's remove the fact that these people are millionaires, whatever the case may be. Let's remove these people for a minute. If this was your cousin, and we're not saying it, I would do it if I was a millionaire. We're talking current day. If this was your cousin, would you have paid for the funeral expenses? If this was your cousin, just currently who we are now, working our regular 9-to-5 jobs that we currently have, not proclaiming to be millionaires or anything of that nature, would you have paid for the funeral? I want to know. Miss Wynn said it was fine that Stormy paid for the funeral, but it felt distasteful to say it in the reunion because we don't know if her husband wants that information disclosed. Great point. Great point. Girlfriend Chronicle said, yes, that was tacky that Carlos King did not offer. Okay. Teresa said, in my case, if it were me, we have insurance. If not, it would probably be GoFundMe because my broke family broke. Okay. Betty said the family should have paid for it, but we know many of our race don't have insurance, including my relatives. I'm glad you said that, Betty, because that's where we're going. Angela said it was a good thing she helped out, but she didn't have to put out all Kiki husband's business, in my opinion. Okay, great point. Mama B said, hey, Diva. Mama B said, would and have as a family. Okay, she's done it before. Girlfriend Chronicle said, yes, my sister cousin that I claim to love so much. Yes, I would. Gotcha. Teresa said, if I had the money, I would with no problem. Sis said, of course, people should have insurance policies to not be a burden on anyone. Hey, Tyra. Thanks for pulling up to the table, Diva. How you doing? Angela said, yes, if I had the money, I would have. Betty said, I gave my cousin money on her dad's funeral because he had no insurance. Okay. Sis said, yes, as a family, extended or not, we all would come together and pay. So would I. MLC Capricorn said the family should have paid immediate and distance if possible. Okay, great point. Let me see. Great point. Great point. And I'm asking you these questions because I want us to take a deep dive into the reality of what we're witnessing here. This whole situation is a serious situation that should be a wake-up call for all of us. And I'm saying that because it should be a wake-up call because it's important for us to make sure we have our affairs in order. And it just tends to seem like as a culture, we plan and we schedule just about everything. We plan our PTO time away from work. We plan our vacation time. We plan our outfits. our nail appointments, our hair appointments, and everything in between. But somewhere around the lines, we drop the ball when it's time for us to plan one of the most important things, and that's death. And and I was sitting here listening at the conversations. Yes, it was a reality show we were watching, and just listening at the debates going back and forth about who paid, who should have, who didn't, and this and what this person did or did not do. This is typical of what we go through in our Black families when death is involved. It happens every time. It's the inevitable. It's going to happen to all of us at some point. We just don't know the day or the time, but it is going to happen. So our responsibility to ourselves and our families is to make sure we have our affairs in order. So when I was watching all of this stuff and I was, in different chats, just listening in on the conversation, I was drawn to this topic because I wanted to pull the reality out of what we were witnessing on this reality TV show. This sparked a conversation that I feel is necessary. It's something that we, for whatever reason, tend to sway away from talking about, but we need to talk about it. It's our responsibilities for ourselves and our family to make sure we have our affairs in order. We shouldn't have to be creating GoFundMe accounts and selling fish dinners to cover funeral expenses. We shouldn't have to. I remember when I was growing up and we were younger, the family would come together. There were times where, a family member would pass away and it wasn't enough money to raise money, but I don't ever recall GoFundMe even being a thing. And my family definitely didn't have to sell any fish dinners or anything like that. Our family, the siblings, the aunts, whomever, they would come together and they all would say, this is how much we are short. With all of us put together, this is how much we need to come up with as a collective to make sure we can bury our loved one. That's how I grew up seeing it when I was younger. I remember, my family having burial policies and having insurance policies that would cover burial insurance and things like that. Now, don't get me wrong. I know things happen unexpectedly. That's not what I'm talking about. I know people fall on hard times. I do. But I feel like this conversation is a conversation that we need to have. But we owe it to ourselves to have insurance and funeral policies in place. And I can't stress enough how important it is for us to make sure we properly plan and have things in order. Yes, you have to make monthly payments on your policies. But don't we make monthly payments on our mortgages, our cars, our credit cards? We make monthly payments on all of this stuff. Why won't we, as a culture, make it our business to get insurance policies? Why does it seem odd for us to realize that having life insurance and burial policies are a necessity? It's important to have your affairs in order so that you can make sure that your wishes are carried out, for one thing, and make sure they're carried out the way that you want them so that we can avoid all of this family conflict. Because we all know when there's a death in the family, that's when all hell breaks loose. So let's try to mitigate this as best as possible by at least having everything in order. Why is it important? For one, it can help ease the mind of your loved ones that are already grieving your loss. I don't want to have to be grieving or can't properly grieve because we got to worry about where we going to get the money to even bury you. We got to worry about where the money is going to come from with all of this debt that you could possibly be leaving. It's one less thing that we will have to worry about. You can also specify your expectations and make sure everybody knows what your final wishes are. We can avoid a lot of this conflict if we just take the time to schedule these things and put our affairs in order and make sure we are doing what we need to do. And, having to get your affairs in order before death can be difficult. It is difficult because it often involves you having to sit here and think like, Oh my goodness, it feels like I'm planning my own death. And that's emotionally challenging because if you're looking at it that way, it can be overwhelming. And a lot of us struggle with getting our affairs in order because we fear death. We don't want to talk about it. Talking about it is unsettling. It can trigger anxiety. So we just avoid talking about it altogether. Some of us live in denial. We just keep procrastinating, keep believing that we have plenty of time. So we just keep putting it off. But unfortunately, tomorrow is not promised to us. So we have to make this a priority. And I get that it's a lot of paperwork involved. It's a lot of legal documentation that's involved. Like, your power of attorney and living wills, all of that stuff can be confusing. So yes, you do need professional guidance, and you need to make sure that you are dotting all of your I's, crossing all of your T's, making sure everything is together. And sometimes we just don't know where to start. So we may not be aware of the steps to take. I get that. But it's so much technology and so much information out there today that we can seek to make sure we're just doing things decent and in order. But we've seen time and time again what happens when we don't do what we need to do. So it's so important. And that's why I was sitting here when I was just sitting here thinking, I was like, what topic am I going to talk about today? Am I going to talk about the love and marriage, um, Huntsville reunion? What am I going to do? So I'm sitting there trying to hone in on the different conversations I'm hearing, and I'm just hearing about this whole funeral thing. And then it just clicked, like, this is a conversation that we need to have because this is real life. This is not reality TV. Yes, we were watching this reality TV show and them discussing this situation, but this is a real life situation that a lot of us don't talk about. We just don't talk about it. But guess what? Like I said, it's the inevitable. It is going to happen. We don't know the day nor the hour, but it is going to happen, and it'll ease your mind, and you can rest better knowing that my family won't have to deal with this if I pass away. Everything is in order. Everything is in order. So we need to make sure that, we just have to get our affairs in order. We have to make sure. Girlfriend Chronicle said yes. And if there's no insurance, try to do pre-funeral arrangements, especially if you have a troubled child in the world, in order not to be doing fish fries and selling t-shirts. I agree. Teresa said, after my baby boy passed, I made sure everybody in the family had insurance policies. Yes, it's definitely it puts a spark under you because it's stressful enough having to deal with the loss and burying a loved one. So you just want to make the process as easy as possible if you can. Tyra said, Teresa, tired, to be honest, my only day off, go back in the morning. Oh, sis, get you some rest. Miss Wynn said, exactly. In my family, even if we disagree during funerals, we all come together. And yeah, and that's another topic we're going to talk about. Why is it that we only come together when it's funerals? Why is it that, it seems like the family reunions are null and void anymore? We don't get together like we used to until it's a funeral. And while we're at the funeral, we'll say, okay, we're going to have to make sure we get together. We don't want it to be another funeral. And then here it is. Nobody gets together and it's another funeral again. So that's another topic we're going to talk about for a different day. Teresa said, don't nobody want to talk about it. You're absolutely right. You are absolutely right. Angela said it's a shame that a lot of people just don't think it's important to have life insurance. It really is. And that's a conversation that my husband and I, we had that conversation with our kids. We made sure that we're going to sit down and we're going to go over insurance policies. We all have separate policies. We just have in everything together, and you have to, it's an uneasy conversation, but it's a necessary conversation. It's a conversation that we have to have. We have to have it. There's no getting around it. Ms. Wynn said, being the mom of an only child, I am making sure that my child doesn't have to worry about anything. I have life insurance. Yes, yes, yes. Teresa said, thanks for pulling up to Pink Table Topics. Please hit the like button, subscribe, and share. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you, sis. Tyra says, times have changed since then. Family ain't family no more in some cases. Facts, sis. Tyra also said, I'm insured. My daughter's insured as well as my grandson. Yes. Yes, Girlfriend Chronicles. She said, people are afraid of the D word. They are. They really are. Tyra said, you better have a will because they're going to be fighting over your, oh my goodness. Listen. Yes, yes, yes. Hey, Alf. Thanks for pulling up to the table. I appreciate you for being here. You are so right. Teresa said that her mother had everything planned before she passed. Her sister and I didn't have to do anything. That's a blessing in itself. Tyra said, my grandmother always said, just like you prepare to live, you got to prepare to die. Now, that is a true statement. True statement. Girlfriend Chronicle said, my mother did as well. She had even did her own obituary. Obituary. Yes, 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 yes. Tyra said, Teresa, my aunt had a funeral already paid for. So when that time came, they had nothing to do. She already knew when she wanted to be buried and all. Takes the stress off of you. Betty said, my cousin said he didn't need insurance because he wouldn't be able to use. When he died, his brothers had him cremated, the cheapest route. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. MLC Capricorn said, my mom did too many years ago. She suffers from dementia now. Sorry to hear that, sis. But it's definitely important. And here's what you can do. Create a will. Name your executor or your trustee. Create a will. Appoint you a power of attorney. Name someone to make decisions about your money, your property, your health. If you become incapacitated, get you a power of attorney. Make sure you update your beneficiaries. Keep your beneficiary designations up to date on your financial accounts, such as your life insurance, your retirement accounts, and any investment accounts that you may have. Make sure you keep it updated. And this is a true story. One of my girlfriends were married. They had two sons. Her husband passed away unexpectedly. They had two sons. The husband had been working at a previous job before he got married. He had been working at this job before he got married. His mother was listed as the beneficiary on his insurance. Being that he was there so long, yes, he put his wife's name on insurance stuff at his job. However, he did not change the beneficiary. He had his mother listed as the beneficiary. When he passed away, don't you know that all of his benefits went to his mother and not to his wife? And his wife had to go through probate court trying to fight his mom to get what was rightfully hers. Don't you know his mother did not give her money, did not give the money to her, even though it was in her name and she knew he was married and it should have went to her and his small kids. Don't you know his mother didn't even help her front the funeral cost? The mother did not give her a dime on the funeral expenses. She had to spend money out of her own pocket to bury her husband. And she had two small children, but she had another policy. So that was able to give her a cushion. However, the mother was wrong. The mother was wrong. And see, and this is the thing. This is why it's important to make sure your documentation is up to date, because a lot of times we will say, if something happens to me, I'm going to leave everything to this person because I know they will evenly distribute funds or insurance, whatever monies to my kids, and I know they'll do the right thing. Let me tell you something. When you pass away, you cannot depend on that person to do the right thing for your children or whomever you want, put them over to make sure they distribute equally, because this is where we talk about money is the root of all evil. Because when you pass away, you can't determine what they do with it, because the kids and anybody else that you want them to distribute the money to, they don't know that you place that person over the money to make sure that they get it. That person is going to have that very mindset that I need this money. I got bills to pay. They won't know that she left this money. So you can't just think that this person is going to do the right thing in your death. So you need to make sure everything is in writing and you have everything up to date. Make sure your beneficiaries are up to date. And when I was talking to a financial advisor, you know how sometimes when you have children, Sometimes you have that one kid that you just know won't do the right thing. So you will say, well, this kid right here is more responsible and I know they'll do the right thing. So I'll have, a higher percentage going to this kid. And then I know that they'll make sure the other sibling get it, because if I give it to the other sibling, they're going to just run through it, not going to do the right thing. And I had a financial advisor tell me, she said, don't do that. And the reason why I'm telling you not to do that, she said, if you have children, go ahead and equally divide that money up between those two beneficiaries, and do not put it in the hands of one child over the other child, because in your death, what they're going to be doing is fighting. They won't even have the opportunity to grieve because they're going to be fighting back and forth over the money. Why would mama leave you the money and not leave me the money? I'm the oldest. Why did she give it to you? Or if you give it to one thinking that they're going to do the right thing and they don't. And that happened to me. Didn't get distributed like it was supposed to. So again, she said, you're leaving them in a bad space with each other because you were thinking, well, I know this one won't do the right thing, so let me leave it with this one. And she said, don't do that. Just go ahead and equally divide it up. If that kid, that irresponsible kid, just go out there and blow it all, let them blow it all. They're the ones that will have to live with what they did with the money. Don't put it in the lap of the other kid, because now you're causing friction. So don't do that. So just make sure you keep your beneficiaries properly updated on all of your financial accounts. And that is your life insurance, your retirement accounts, and any investment accounts. Make sure you prepare a living will. List all of your health care wishes on your living will so that they'll know what to do. Plan your final arrangements. Include your funeral plan in your other arrangements. Consider setting some money aside for funeral expenses if you don't have a prepaid funeral plan, because you do know that funeral homes will allow you to set up a prepaid funeral plan. So that would help. So do that as well. Also, gather your important documents. I can't stress that enough. Gather your important documents. Make copies of your important documents. And that's including your will, your insurance policies, your bank account information. Make copies of all of those documents. Put it in a safe. Put it somewhere to where that responsible person or whomever is over your will or your power of attorney, make sure they know where those documents are. So when something happens, you know where to find all of this information. And I'm saying that because I had a conversation. I remember having a conversation with my brother. My brother is older than me, but my brother is not married. He a little hoe, but I'll say that for another day. But he's not married, got plenty of women. But I had to have a conversation with him one day. I called him and I was like, do you have your insurance paperwork together? Like, who do you have insurance with? And mind you, my brother's retired military. And he was like, yeah, all of my stuff is through the military. I said, I get that. I said, but who is the person that's responsible for knowing where all of your important documents are? Like, where's your will? Where's your policies? Who do we contact? How do we know this information? Like, do you have someone that's set aside to have this information? So if something happens to you, and I say, and I'm asking you this because you're not married and, you have women in and out. Where is your information? Because you know what? The first time something happens to him, who you think they're going to call? Me, my sister, and my daddy. Or his kids. But if none of us know where the information is, we'll be stuck. So make sure that you have your documents together, and just make sure that you have a power of attorney, and make sure that you have someone over your information, because he'll be out here with all these different women. But if something happened, they're not going to know. They're going to be calling his family. So I was like, we need to know this stuff. And then, and we got to get out of the habit of thinking that people just want to be in our business when we bring up conversations and topics like this. We're not trying to be in your business. We're just trying to make sure that things can go as smoothly as possible if something were to come up and if something was to happen. So it's important for us to be having these conversations and just making sure everything is in place, because we just don't know. And none of us are rich. I'm not. I don't know about you. None of us are rich, and everybody living their own lives. So to be thrown into a situation to where now we got to come up with money to help bury a loved one because they didn't have insurance, or we don't know anything about their insurance policies or what have you, that's still an inconvenience. And the least thing that you should want your family to do is to be inconvenienced because of a financial reason, because you didn't have your information in order. Make a list of your debts and any memberships that you have. List all of this stuff. This is like so important. Passwords, all of that stuff. If you have digital accounts, digital assets, make sure you listing all of that information. And if you got properties, consider doing a living trust. Get your properties in order. And don't be afraid to have a conversation with your loved ones. Plan a family meeting and have the conversation. Talk about your plans. Talk about your wishes. Talk about, if something happened, I'm not an organ donor, or if you are an organ donor. Because we've seen how situations plan out if you pass away and you're at the hospital and you're an organ donor and the family members don't know. So just make sure you're having those conversations. Review your retirement accounts. Make sure everything is updated on your retirement accounts. Make sure your insurance is updated. It's a conversation that we don't like to have, but it's one we need to have. Share your decisions with your family. It's already stressful enough, but just make sure everybody know that what you desire to have happen when you are no longer here is not only understood, but it's respected. Have the conversation. It's a hard conversation, but we have to talk about the conversation. We got to get out of being afraid of having the conversation. We got to make sure that we're just planning better financially. Yes, times are hard. Yes, everything in the stores are super expensive. Everything is. But again, take a look at your finances and see something that you can admit. Some of us got several credit cards, paying these stupid, crazy car payments every month. Car insurance is high. Rent is high if you don't have a mortgage. But just all of this, we're traveling, we're doing any and everything in between outside of what we need to be doing to secure our important information, such as death, and making sure everything is in order. Hey, Diva, I am blessed because Pam is here. Hey, Diva, thanks for pulling up. Girlfriend Chronicle said, I have a file cabinet with all of my important documents in them, detailing everything, will and beneficiaries. Yes, sis. Yes. Hey, Mama Capricorn. Hey, Gia. Thanks for joining, sis. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you for being here. MLC Capricorn said that my mom did too many years ago. Okay, I read that one already. But yes, make sure you got your documents together. Mama Capricorn said, is it better to have a will versus a trust? I was told that having a trust is the better option. You can do which one you want to do, because everything would have to go to the trust. And because this is the thing, because I had a cousin once that had a family member pass away that left a will, but with the will, you have to make sure that the will is not only a will, but it's a notarized will. Make sure that it's been notarized, because if it's just like our grandmamas used to do, just write it on a piece of paper and stick it up under her mattress so nobody could find it, and then one day they run across it, who do you think is going to respect that? Like, who do you think is really going to honor that? But if you have a trust, everybody has to go through the trust. Nothing can be moved without going through the trust. Tyra said, I got mine going 4 ways, which includes my grandson. Good for you, sis. Mama V said, I was in charge when my mother passed and my brothers were mad at me. I'm the only daughter with 4 brothers. And seeing that's the thing. It's just like um everything is already like emotions are already over all over the place when you're dealing with the death of a loved one. And when you start talking about finances, when you start talking about who gonna get the house, who gets her car, who gets the jewelry, and all of that kind of stuff, that's another headache that you have to deal with, because now we got to be fussing and fighting over this stuff. And 9 times out of 10, it's the people who were never there helping do anything around the house. They always think they deserve something because they may have been the oldest or whatever the case may be. Everybody got something to say, right? Franchetta said, hey, I finally caught a live. Keep up the good conversation. Thanks, Diva. Thank you so much for pulling up. I appreciate you. Teresa said, our race is terrible about thinking somebody want to be in their business. I told my nephew, boy, you ain't got no business. Exactly. Hey, Lady Virgo. Thanks for joining, sis. She said this topic is right on time. Yes, it is. And praying for you, sis. Teresa said, hey, my beautiful Virgo sis, still praying. Yes, we're praying for you. Yes. Miss Wynn said, excellent suggestions, taking notes of the ones I didn't talk about. Yes, much needed conversation. My financial planner told me to do a will and I keep putting it off. Yes, Betty, go ahead and make sure you do it, sis. Make sure you do it. We have, my girls and I, we actually have a meeting scheduled the first weekend in March with our financial planner to go over more of this information in regards to insurance and stuff. Just making sure they have their own, because like my youngest daughter is married, my oldest is not. So I'm just trying to make sure she has her affairs in order and she's got her insurance and stuff set up, because a lot of times people tend to think that the life insurance that you have with your job is enough. A lot of people think that. And what you need to understand is that yes, you have life insurance with this job, but what happens when you go to another job? That insurance that you have with that job is not going to carry over. So you still need to have a policy outside of your job, because you have to take into consideration that something happens to you, they're not going to pay out right away. There's still a gap. There's still a waiting process. So you need to make sure that you have a trust, make sure you have a will, and just make sure you have everything in order. Teresa said we have a safe with everything in it. Yes, so do I. So do I. Girlfriend Chronicle said, after our mother's passing, my sisters and I got all of our affairs in order. All of this that you are speaking of is exactly what we have done. Great job. Good for you, sis. It's important. We have to. And then the more you think about it, it tends to seem like, well, for some of us, it just seems like it takes death. It takes a death in the family for it to light a spark under us and say, hey, we need to get this in order. We need to do better at doing this. And, let's get all of this stuff together, because we, like I said earlier, we're just so secretive about a lot of stuff. And, we keep stuff like put away in places where people can't find it. And we don't talk to people about stuff. And then when something happens, we're all just looking dumbfounded because we don't know anything about your affairs. We don't even know where to start. So having it all in a safe space, all in the same place, definitely will help a lot. So make sure you have a safe space for it. Make sure somebody knows where it is, so that if something happened, you have to think about like the names of your beneficiaries on your bank accounts. You have to, because sometimes if you don't have, because I had a friend that her mother passed away. Her mother had her listed as the beneficiary on the bank account, but she had both her and her other sister listed as authorized. No, she had her listed as an authorized user, but the other sister was listed as her power of attorney. But what you have to understand is that in death, the power of attorney is null and void. Once they pass away, the power of attorney is null and void. So that sister went to the bank thinking that she could withdraw the money out of the bank, but she couldn't because she wasn't an authorized user on the bank account. And if there are no authorized user on the bank account, the bank will freeze the accounts. So you need to make sure you have those wills, you have those trusts, you have all of those beneficiaries and important documents in order. Hey, kicking it with Courtney. Thanks for pulling up to the table. Thanks for joining. I appreciate you for being here. I am blessed pecan. Pam said, yes, trust is better in my opinion. Yes, I agree too. I think the trust is better as well. Tyra says, I've had my car for 18 years with 175,000 miles on it. Everything still works. I'm the only driver. I know that's right. Teresa said, we did too about 3 weeks ago, except we had everything, so we were squared away. Yes, make sure you have everything squared away. Have your important documents squared away, because the last thing we need to be worried about is where the money is going to come from, right? The last thing we need to be worried about is where the money is going to come from. Girlfriend Chronicle said, and please keep in mind, if you do not list a beneficiary for ER paid plans, that the money will go back to the employer. Yes, the money will definitely go back to the employer. And the thing is, if you are confused at what you need to do, you need to make sure that you seek a financial advisor. You need to make sure you seek a professional that can go over the importance of having a will versus a trust. Which one do you suggest that I have? Speak to a professional. There are professionals out there in your community, regardless of where you live. There are professionals that you can connect with to make sure that you have the information that you have. Mama Capricorn said, is there any way to avoid probate? You can avoid probate by making sure you have everything in order. The reason why probate court is so backed up is because of this very thing we're talking about. People not having their affairs in order. Make sure you have everything in order. I can't stress it enough. Teresa says the power of attorney goes away when they pass away. Absolutely. The power of attorney is null and void when the person passes away, for sure. Mama Capricorn said every time I would try and talk to my dad about doing a will, he would always change the subject. I never understood it, considering he was a veteran. That's because just us, our culture, I don't think we like to talk about it. I don't know why we tend to think that we have more time than we actually have. So that's a conversation that we try to steer away from. It's an uneasy conversation. It really is, but it's something that we definitely need to make sure we had. I remember talking to my dad. I remember since being a little girl, my parents had what they called a burial fund. And it was through one of the churches. They paid every month faithfully. I'm talking as far as I can remember. I would hear my dad say, I'm going to pay the burial fund. Or the insurance lady would come and collect the burial fund. And I remember just a couple of years ago having a conversation with my dad, because the burial fund included, of course, the funeral expenses, your plot at the church, all of those things were included in this burial fund. And again, I remember when I was a young girl, my dad and my mom used to pay into this burial fund. So I just happened to speak to my dad about this a couple years ago. And I was like, Dad, because I'm trying to get his affairs in order, because my dad is elderly. He's in a wheelchair. He has health complications. So I'm making sure all of his affairs are in order. So I'm talking to him about the burial insurance. I say, I need to know, where's the policy so that I can look over everything. So I make sure I have that, because I'm my dad's POA. So I need to make sure I have all of that information. And then he tells me, he was like, I forgot to tell you, they canceled that burial policy. Something happened with the insurance lady that was collecting the money, mismanaged the funds. They ended up canceling it, and they only sent out everybody like a couple $100 from the policy. I'm pissed, because like I said, I remember my parents paying into this burial fund for years. I was a young girl. And you mean to tell me that they only refunded you a couple $100? So at that point, I'm like, oh my God, I have to get some insurance for my dad. So I had to fly to Mississippi because things are so different now. You can't just get life insurance on a person like you used to back in the day. As long as you had their social security number, you could take out a life insurance policy on anybody that you wanted to, but you can't do that these days. You actually have to, the person has to know that you're taking a policy, because you and the person have to go to the office itself to do the policy. And you are listed as the manager of the policy, and you pay the policy every month. So I had to fly into Mississippi to schedule an appointment for my dad and me to go to the insurance agency so that we could get this insurance policy, so that we can make sure everything was in order. Because yes, my dad is a vet, but this policy covered like the burial plots and all of that kind of stuff. And he just didn't have he didn't have that, because, and I didn't know. So that's why I say these type of conversations are needed. You need to stay on top of it and have the conversations, because this right here could have been a gap. We would have been thrown through a loop because we thought all of this was together. We thought, and so he would have missed his plot of being buried by my mom, because that's where the plots are. So, and if I had not have had that conversation, I wouldn't have known. Teresa said the banks will not release a dime from your loved one's accounts unless your name is on a will, trust, or something. The banks will not give you a penny without proper documentation. You are 100% correct. Hey, Aunt Debbie. Thanks for pulling up to the table. I appreciate you. I was over there in your bushes earlier. Great topic. Great conversation. Thank you for being here. Teresa said the churches used to do funeral service for free. Now they charge an arm and a leg to use the church to pay your offering. And yes. The churches will charge you. The churches will charge you. So this again goes into when you are deciding on the funeral arrangements. This is your opportunity to list in your will. Do you want to be cremated? Do you want to actually have a funeral service? When you go into wanting to do the whole service, the expenses just keep piling on. It's cheaper to do a cremation. So if a person is saying their final wish is to be cremated, honor their wishes. But this is, again, something that you have to list in your will so that your family can make sure they are, respecting your final wishes. Mama Capricorn said the only reason I would bring it up to him is because when my baby brother passed away suddenly, we didn't know any of his business. That is the worst feeling. Absolutely. That is the whole reason why I wanted to have that conversation with my brother, because nobody knows his information. So there was a conversation that we needed to have, because we knew, had something happened, we're the first person that everybody's going to come to. They're going to call, this happened with your brother. And then we're left trying to pull the pieces together. Betty said it happens. Quite a few Black people in my area were scammed by an insurance salesperson. They were paying for policy, but he was keeping the money. Absolutely. Yes. Hey, Cece. Thanks for joining. I appreciate you for being here. Thanks for pulling up. The Queen Speaks TV. Hey, Diva. Thank you so much for pulling up. We appreciate you. She said, I did my dad's insurance policy over the phone, and paperwork was sent through email for me to sign. I had to have my father on the phone with me. I got that and made a will for him and a POA. And see, here's the thing. Now, the insurance company that I went through when I was doing this for my dad, I had to do it in person. She told me that there were 2 states, which ended up being the one I'm in, and New York, were the only 2 states that their company could not do an over the phone policy. I had to actually go to his home state. I even asked them if I could go to one of their sister companies that was here local in my city, and they told me no. I had to actually come to the state that my dad lived in and do the policy there. So that's what I had to do. I had to actually fly into there. So different insurance companies, I'm sure, have different rules and regulations. So just make sure that you ask and you confirm when you're trying to set the policies up, but just make sure you are at least taking the steps necessary to do so, for sure. Mama Capricorn said, I wouldn't want anyone to go through that. When you are put in a position to plan a funeral and the only person who could answer questions no longer can. Great topics. I totally agree. The Queen Speaks said, so when my dad passed away, everything went so smoothly. And that is the reason why we should make sure we have everything in order. Again, when you are grieving the loss of a loved one, the last thing you want to be doing is thinking about how much it's going to cost financially. The last thing you want to think about is where is the money going to come for? You're already in a bind, right? So you definitely want to make sure all of your paper. I cannot stress this enough. Lady Virgo said, Teresa, you're right. The church will charge you an arm and a leg, not to mention the gravesite. Absolutely. The gravesite, the tomb, the headstone, all of that stuff. It is super expensive. Hey, Brittany Janae. She said, hey, Pink Diva in chat. Thank you so much for pulling up, Diva. I appreciate you for being here. Yes, yes. All of this matters. All of this matters. Please make sure you just make sure you got everything in order. Make sure your finances are in order so that you don't have to put this financial strain on your family. I am going to drop the link in the chat if you want to come up so we can further have this conversation. If you don't have to. But I just wanted to make sure that we could just have this conversation. D Good said, I think TMW should have paid for it. Yeah, I mean, given that they are millionaires, it should not have been a question because, all they would have had to do was basically just contact the funeral homes. I don't see Alabama being so big to where there are so many funeral homes to where you couldn't find out who had the body, right? So all they had to do was anonymously make the payment, and nobody really even had to know, even though there were friction with the two families, you still could have if you wanted to. And I think, and just going back to the whole Tisha situation, saying that that was her sister cousin, if it were me, nobody would have even had to ask, because I don't care what type of falling out we had previously. Something like that, nobody would have even had to ask me to do it. I would have automatically stepped up to the plate to make sure I did the right thing by my cousin. So nobody would have even, I wouldn't have even cared what her husband said. If it's my sister cousin, like she said, and I have a sister cousin, I have a cousin, and she and I are so close, just like we are sisters. Nobody could be able to tell me that I couldn't do this or I couldn't show up to the funeral or what have you. By all means necessary, I would have been there and I would have made sure I was doing my part. The Queen Speak said, that's true. It depends on the state you live in, because at the time I lived in Alabama and he lived in Ohio. But thankfully, I was able to get it done without having to go to Ohio. I definitely tried. I was trying not to have to go there. But I didn't want to prolong it because that basically freaked me out. And I wanted to make sure I could get something set in stone. So I just did what I had to do and flew in and got it taken care of. Brittany Janae said, oh, please, those big back from the wrong side of the tracks ain't millionaires. It don't look like it. I think they were kicking it in. Where were they kicking it in? Aruba over the weekend. But yeah, so I definitely believe that they should have. I would have done it. Nobody wouldn't have been able to tell me what I couldn't or shouldn't have done for my cousin. I would have, they would have been able to just show up, and, her husband and kids would have been able to just show up and, remember their loved one in peace without having to worry about all the chaos that was going on. And then also just remember, life is just short. Life is so short. Don't sweat the small stuff. It's time out for us to keep holding on to stuff. Just remember how short life is, and then just, try to come to some sort of resolve if possible. And resolve can mean you walking away and not giving that thing any energy anymore, but just make sure you are doing your part. If we no longer are feeling each other that way, I can love you from a distance. I don't wish any harm, but we need to make sure we are being careful of the things we say, because there is power in the tongue. And when you say things like what Tisha said about her cousin and saying that she was unalive to her, I can only imagine how that's eating her up today. To say something like that and then something like that actually happens for real. That's why you have to be careful what you say, especially when it comes to petty situations. Either we resolve it by, speaking our piece, making amends with the relationship, or just choosing to walk away from the relationship, whichever works for you. But just be mindful of the things that you say, because, her and Wanda came out here and was saying some very vile stuff for it to be, a family member, regardless of, what happened, what transpired. For some of the stuff that they were saying was very cringeworthy to me. I would never. So you have to be careful the things that you say. Mama Capricorn said, my aunt knew she was leaving this earth, so she met me with all her kids and told them who gets what. She also wrote her obituary program and paid for the funeral. Her kids were free to celebrate her life. Yes, that's a blessing in itself, for real. That's definitely a blessing. Teresa said they probably went to Aruba on one of those timeshare trips where you have to sit and listen to Teresa. The Queen Speaks said, after taking care of my dad's affairs, it made me realize that I needed to get my own affairs in order, and I did. Kudos to you for doing that, for sure. Kudos to you for doing that. Lady Virgo said, Brittany and Janae, they're playing with monopoly money and loans. Maybe that's what it is, sis. Maybe that's what it is. But if anybody has like any information that you feel could be helpful to anyone, feel free to drop it in the chat. Drop it in the chat, because this is what these topics are for, to have these real life conversations. This is something that we all have either dealt with already, or at some point in life, we will have to deal with a situation such as this. So if you have like any pointers, any questions that you may need answers to, I actually have an insurance person that I am going to invite to do a live with me, and I'm going to reschedule another one so that he can come on and give insurance information. So if that's something you're interested in being a part of, let me know and I can get something scheduled with him. I wanted him to do it today, but I didn't have time with me just getting back from my vacation on Sunday to be able to have him to come in such short notice for today. But I'll definitely schedule a different one so you actually have the opportunity to speak with or listen to a professional go over this insurance information so that you can just better prepare yourself. So definitely. The Queen Speaks TV said, this is a great topic. Glad I got a chance to stop through. Take care and see you next time. Thank you so much, Diva. I appreciate you for pulling up. Thank you. I appreciate you. To everybody that's coming in, please make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you also share this live, because it can help someone else that may have questions. So definitely share to all of the content creators that stopped by. Thank you so much. I appreciate you for pulling up and supporting me. I appreciate you. MLC Capricorn said, I just don't understand the purpose of Stormy broadcasting on a national platform that she paid for the funeral. I definitely agree. I don't understand why she felt the need to broadcast it, and I don't understand why she didn't get the same heat that they tried to give Mel when Mel mentioned her giving Destiny that money at that one time. But the thing about Mel, she didn't mention it until Destiny kept going on this campaign of saying how bad of a friend she was and what she did not do. So I feel like, and if we go back to the reunion, I feel like, to me, it was no use in Stormy even showing up to the reunion. I feel like, to me, I felt like that was Carlos trying to be messy in a sense. Basically, he gave Stormy a free advertisement to come up and talk about her business, to showboat her money and what she had going on, and talk about everything that's going on in Stormy's life with her Canvas Beauty, her TikTok, and all of this. Basically, he gave her a gloat session. Basically, I feel like he was putting her on the platform to be able to do it in your face to Mel for whatever reason. That's kind of how I took it, because what other reason was it for him to allow her to come out there for 5 minutes? Like, she ain't say nothing. You came out there for 5 minutes to talk about that. You could have written that in a statement. He could have read that statement without you even being there. So you flew all the way to LA just to come sit on that stage for 5 minutes. I do know some people said that the reunion was edited out and that more than that actually happened, but I just can't see her actually coming there for 5 minutes just to sit on the stage and say what she said, right? Alf Mack said that would be great. Pink Table Topics, bringing a financial expert to discuss the one-on-one of planning for the hereafter. Absolutely. Thank you, sis. I'll make sure I do that. Lady Virgo said, I'm going in the brushes. My phone is ringing off the hook. Love y'all. Have a blessed night. Thanks, sis. Thank you so much for pulling up. We appreciate you. Teresa says Stormy showed up for 2 reasons: to brag about TikTok and paying for the funeral. I agree. Mama Capricorn said, to me, that was tacky. I would have never mentioned what I did for someone. Totally agree. I agree. Mama V said, epic fail. Melody don't care. Period. She didn't care. And the thing that I keep having to remind myself when I hear people saying stuff like that or trying to say that Stormy did this first or Stormy is bigger than Mel, Stormy is better than Mel. For one, I would never pit both ladies against each other. But for some odd reason, I don't understand why people find it so hard to remember that Mel was money before Love and Marriage Huntsville. Love and Marriage Huntsville did not put Mel on. She had money. She was a millionaire before Love and Marriage Huntsville actually started. So I don't understand why they feel like what Stormy has going on now is more than what Mel has going on, because Mel was doing this before the show. Yes, she started her 7th Avenue beauty brand during her tenure of Love and Marriage Huntsville, but she did have her Embrace Beauty prior to this. But she had money before the show even started. Before she even came on this reality show, she already was a young millionaire. So I just don't understand where the comparison thing keeps coming from and why people tend to always want to compare Stormy's riches to Mel's 7th Avenue. Like you keep limiting her to her 7th Avenue beauty brand that was recently started during the tenure of the show, but she had money before then. She was living quite well before the show. She had a beautiful home before the show. She had businesses before the show. She had money before the show. And everybody on the show knew she and Martell had this before the show. So I don't understand why, it's such a big comparison to what Stormy has and what Stormy is doing. And kudos to Stormy. Like, I'm happy to see another Black woman out here doing what she do and doing her thing. But you're not the first and you're not the only. And you won't be the last. And just as quick as it was given, it can be taken away just as fast. And she's already had an experience to where she had lost it all. So for me, I think she should move a little bit more humble and remember where she came from and what she almost lost. Teresa said, but Mel don't boast and brag. That's why they don't really know. They think they know, but they don't. I agree. Brittany Janae said that part. Plus, Mel had multiple successful businesses. That's true. And plus, Mel doesn't have a mug shot. There's a lot of things they have that Mel don't have. And it's ironic how they won't mention those things that they have that she don't have. It's just ironic. But they tend to always want to try to put those two women in competition with each other. And they're so quick to say, well, Stormy had to let Mel use her pool for her video. She didn't have to let Mel use nothing, because Mel could have flown to Mexico and filmed a video at a pool in the Caribbean if she wanted to, because she had the money to do so. But that was her way of yet again trying to help boost Stormy's performance on the show. She didn't have to use Stormy's pool. So I really wish people would pipe down out of the reality and look at it, like really look at it. Really look at it. Mama V said Melody has a lot of businesses. You can't compare the two of them. Absolutely. Teresa said Tisha and Martell was living in Mel and Martell's townhouse and driving their car before the show, or right when the show began. Alf said a lot of viewers don't know that about Melody's wealth because Carlos King has made it a point to diminish how successful she was. Very true. Mama Capricorn said Melody never going to mention how much she makes on a live. Only people who are new to making millions feel like they have to mention how much they make. I totally agree. I totally agree. And one thing that pissed me off too with Carlos, because I feel like, you know how Bravo, when Andy is closing out the reunion, and you know the last show of the reunion has completed, he'll go around the stage and have all of the ladies talk about what they have coming up since the show has wrapped. And he allows them to say, you know, I have this going on. I'm getting ready to do this, and this. I really dislike the fact that Carlos doesn't do that. And I think he don't do that because he wants to minimize his male male's celebrity and make the others feel good about themselves. You know how sometimes you can have kids in school and your kid can be extremely smart, and the teacher will omit telling your kid how smart they are because they don't want the other kids to feel a certain kind of way because they're not as smart. And I think this is what Carlos tries to do. He tries to dumb down who Mel is and her success and her wealth and all of this stuff because he knows the other cast members aren't on her level. And how dare he put her on a pedestal and promote her businesses? Because the same way he allows Stormy to get up there and talk about her TikTok success and everything that was going on with Canvas Beauty and her life outside of the show, why didn't he allow everybody else? And I'm not just saying he should have just let Mel do it. I'm just saying, why didn't he give everybody else on the stage the opportunity to talk about, you know, what they had going on? And I really think, I don't think it is low-key shade. It's shade. He doesn't want to show that he is supporting Mel in any form or fashion. And that's why he didn't do it. So it's unfortunate. But again, I'm glad she left the show. I'm glad she's no longer on the show. I'm looking forward to her TikTok live on Saturday. I know she has great things planned. I know she got a lot going on, and we are going to support her no matter what. But I just really wish he would have at least tried to do a little bit different on the reality show. But this is Carlos, right? Af said, bingo, Carlos King would never close out the reunion with a positive send-off to allow Melody to promote her endeavors, as it would show how insufficient the entire cast is to Melody. Absolutely. Absolutely. Keisha said, yep, he is her biggest hater. I totally agree. And now we know why. Now we know why, and we can see why there was a drastic change. Hey, Keisha. Keisha said, hey, Pink Table Topics. Thanks for joining. I appreciate you. Mama Capricorn said, you are right, because Martell and Dusty would definitely be lying about anything they have going on. I totally agree. Teresa said, I'm so happy for Mel. Mel and the family can finally have peace. The Mellometers can have peace also. I agree. I agree. Sis said, period. I totally agree. I totally agree. But that's all I have, y'all. Thank y'all so much for pulling up to Pink Table Topics tonight. I appreciate y'all. I just really wanted to have this conversation because I feel like it was a needed conversation. Let's get our affairs in order. If you're unsure and you feel like you're missing something that we talked about, go back through your paperwork, read over your paperwork, make sure you have everything there, make sure you have your beneficiaries in order. Seek financial assistance if you need that, to make sure you have everything in order and all the documents that you need. Go ahead and schedule that family meeting with your kids, your spouse, other family members that you feel that you're going to leave assets to or what have you. Have a meeting. Let's talk about that stuff, because the more you talk about it, the less beef you'll have to worry about when that time comes, right? Because we know how we can be. We are who we are. We've all experienced it at some point in our lives, during funerals or what have you. So let's just make sure we can try to omit as much as possible about those situations if we possibly can, right? Let's just make sure. Hey, let's be clear. Thanks for joining, sis. We are on our way out, but I appreciate you for joining. Teresa says, shout out to ASAP Rocky for being found not guilty. And see, that's how disconnected I am. What's going on with ASAP Rocky? I didn't even know anything was going on. That's how disconnected I am with a lot of this stuff that's going on, child. Let's be clear, said replay, sis. Sorry I missed it. That's okay, sis. Thank you so much for pulling up to the replay. Make sure you hit the like button for me. Shout out to all of the content creators that was in the chat again. I thank you for pulling up and supporting me. I appreciate each and every one of you. To everybody, all of my divas that pulled up, thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate you. If you didn't hit the like button when you came in, please make sure you hit it when you're on your way out. Feel free to share this live. Maybe a loved one, a family member, or something could utilize some of the information that we talked about. Feel free to share the live, and I'll keep you posted when I can get my insurance person to be able to come and join me to be able to answer any questions that you may have, and you'll be able to talk to an actual professional. I'm not a professional. I just know the portions that I've done and I have gathered for my family. And I just really think that is something that we all could use. I know we like to talk about, the reality TV world and what goes on in social media and stuff, but, we definitely, in the day and time that we're living in, we definitely need to make sure we are talking about this real life stuff as well, which is what Pink Table Topics is all about. So again, we need to make sure we are about our business and we're not just talking about it, we're actually being about it. And this will kind of help hopefully eliminate us from having to do these GoFundMe's, because again, it's basically when you're trying to do these GoFundMe's, it's basically like you're wanting complete strangers to help you take care of something that we know we should have had taken care of ourselves. And granted, I do know that everybody just isn't able or capable financially, and they have to go through avenues such as GoFundMe. It is what it is, but when we know better, we do better, right? And we're having these conversations so that we can get ourselves in the mindset to make sure we are taking the steps necessary to make sure we are getting everything in order. Think about not only just yourself, but think about the loved ones that you would be leaving behind if something were to happen to you, and just make sure that you're setting them up financially so that you can at least allow them the time to actually grieve and not have to be stressed because of financial situations, right? So let's make sure we are doing that. And again, much love to all of the content creators that were in the chat. I saw Kicking It with Courtney, Chit Chat with QT, my sis. She was here. Real Talk with Grace and Mercy. She was here. Let me go up to make sure. And if you are a content creator that was here, I am not trying to miss you on purpose. The Queen Speaks TV. Are you a content creator, sis? If you are, thank you so much for joining. I appreciate you for being here. So make sure that you are also supporting those content creators that were in the chat. Again, I appreciate you. Shout out to the replay gang that'll be pulling up to the table later. I appreciate you. Please make sure you hit the like button on your way in. Feel free to leave a comment and make sure that you share the video. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And this concludes this episode of Pink Table Topics. Thank you, Diva, so much for rocking with me. As always, I had a blast. And remember, over here, we all get a seat at the table because it's not about me, it's about us. And I will chat with you soon. Have a good night. Good night, good night, good night. Let me go up and speak to everybody on your way out. Betty, thank you so much, Diva, for pulling up. Aunt Debbie was here. Thank you for joining, Aunt Debbie. Mama Capricorn was here. I appreciate you. MLC Capricorn was here. My mod, my sis, my diva, Teresa was here. My sis, Chit Chat with QT in the house. My mod, thank you, sis. I appreciate you. Girlfriend Chronicles was here. Tyra was here. Lady Virgo. Have a good night, Diva. I appreciate you all for being here. I am blessed because Pam was here. F Mac was here. Thank you, thank you, thank you for joining. My sis CC was in the house. Deborah Jackson was here. Thank you for joining. The Queen Speaks TV was here. I appreciate you for being here, sis. Thanks for joining. Good night, good night. Brittany Janae was in the house. Thank you for joining, sis. I appreciate you. D Good was here. Thank you, Diva. I appreciate you for being here. Have a good night. Good night. Good night. Let me make sure I didn't miss anybody. Make sure I have everybody. I don't want to miss anybody. MLC Capricorn was here. Thanks, sis, for pulling up. I appreciate you for being here. Mama V was here. Have a good night. Good night. Good night. Good night. I think I have Keisha was here. Have a good night, Keisha. Thank you so much for joining. I appreciate you. Let's Be Clear was here. Thank you, sis. I appreciate you for showing up. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Have a good night. And I think I covered everybody. So until next week, Tuesday, 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time with Pink Table Topics, I will chat with you soon. Have a good night.